Hey guys, it's Emma. Today I decided to do a Draw My Life video for you guys. I've been getting so many questions about designer babies ever since I mentioned that my parents took a different route for how I came to be. And because designer babies are getting so popular, in this video I decided to explain why I'm a designer baby and how my life is different than many others. I was born on January 3rd, 2023, but it all really started in the year 2022 when my parents decided that they were ready to have a child. However, things were a little more complicated for them. My dad has a condition called cystic fibrosis, a genetic condition that affects the lungs by causing the production of a thick, sticky mucus. The lifespan of these individuals is around 50 years, but luckily my dad is doing okay. However, my mom is a carrier of cystic fibrosis, meaning that she has one recessive allele for the condition. This might sound a bit confusing, but cystic fibrosis is an autosomal recessive condition, meaning that you need two of the recessive alleles to have the condition. So, as you can see, I would have had a 50% chance of having the disorder, if my parents conceived me naturally. Before telling you more about how the process of having a designer baby works, I'd like to tell you more about what really a designer baby is and why people choose to have designer babies. A designer baby is a genetically modified human embryo which is modified by following the guidelines set by scientists or parents to produce desirable traits. The genetic makeup of these children is artificially set by genetic engineering combined with a process known as in vitro fertilization, or better known as IVF, where an egg and sperm are combined together in a laboratory dish so that fertilization can occur. Together, these processes help ensure the presence or absence of certain genes. Additionally, designer babies have the potential to have desirable traits, ranging from appearance to athletic ability to lowering disease risk. In my case, my parents chose to have a designer baby due to my high risk of having a genetic disorder, cystic fibrosis. The purpose of having a designer baby varies from case to case, but a common situation is if there is a family history of certain genetic diseases. In this case, genetic engineering and a technique called pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, or PGD, which will later be discussed, can be used. Other purposes of having designer babies could be individual preference of parents to create their children in a certain way so that they would have what they deem an advantage in life and a longer lifespan. However, designer babies produced for such reasons may encounter ethical issues. After doing some research on their own about designer babies and cystic fibrosis, my parents decided that they weren't willing to take the risk of me having cystic fibrosis. So they met with a doctor to learn more about the procedure of having a designer baby and learned about some pros and cons as well.
Hi Mr. and Mrs. Cooper, how are you guys?
We're good, thank you.
So based on our previous meeting, I have assessed your records and I will be going over a potential procedure we may use in order to prevent your child from being born with cystic fibrosis.
Okay.
In terms of the procedure, we will first extract eggs from you, Mrs. Cooper, through a small surgery and receive sperm from a sample given by Mr. Cooper. A blood test is required from the mother and is used to figure out hormone levels, and a transvaginal ultrasound conducted to see ovaries. Once that is finished, the sperm and egg will be combined in a dish where the egg is observed to see if fertilization has occurred. This step is called insemination. Because we are using this method to eliminate any chances of the child getting cystic fibrosis, we will also be using pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, or PGD.
What exactly is PGD?
Well, PGD is a specific IVF method used by parents that have inherited genes for various diseases, such as yourselves. It increases the overall potential for successful delivery, as it allows physicians to select embryos that are not predisposed to certain genetic or sex-linked conditions.
Okay, I understand.
For this procedure, first a genetic test will be conducted on the cells removed from the embryos. This is done to select embryos without genetic diseases, for in your case, cystic fibrosis. The embryos are grown for 5 to 6 days, then examination with PGD is performed, where abnormal signs are detected by genetic testing on removed cells.
Okay.
Finally, the embryo is moved into the female's uterus after 3 to 5 days via a small tube that is inserted into the uterus for transfer. Additionally, a new type of genetic engineering, CRISPR, offers potential in editing genomes by removing faulty genes and having them replaced with correctly functioning ones. The system is used to produce designer babies by adjusting genes, removing mutations, or even adding new ones.
Alright, sounds good. Now that we understand the process, could we please go over some of the pros and cons perhaps?
Of course, one advantage of using this method is that it reduces risk of cystic fibrosis, along with any other possible genetic diseases that may be passed down from previous generations, such as Alzheimer's, Huntington's disease, etc. And generally, for related reasons, it increases the child's life expectancy. Finally, it can give children genes that parents do not carry, such as enhanced intelligence and height, though I understand this is not what you're looking to achieve. Now, the goal of the child not having cystic fibrosis will be most likely achieved. There are a few cons we must discuss.
Yes, of course.
So even though we're no longer in the experimental phase of designer babies, genetic processes are not always free of error, meaning it is possible that other errors may come up at some point in the baby's future. It is also possible that there will be damage of the gene pool, as it can create a gap in the society. I would like for both of you to sit down and discuss further pros and cons and ethical issues before making your final decision. I will see you in a week. Hopefully you have made your decision by that time.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your help. After talking to the doctor about designer babies, my parents discussed the ethical concerns, pros and cons, and how the society would be impacted by having a designer baby.
We have quite a few things to go over, don't you agree?
Yeah, you're right.
It's understandable that there are clashing viewpoints of what is considered ethical in terms of having these designer babies. And with the increasing number of designer babies, it already seems like there would be less variance and individuality in people in terms of physical appearance and intellectual capability.
Of course, more and more people are looking to achieve similar traits for their children.
I'm sure that in the near future, this reduction in variation will create an invisible barrier between designer babies and babies born naturally, because those children will know that they are different from others. Isn't it likely, then, that discrimination would proceed between children, as designer babies most likely have a greater advantage over other children?
I absolutely agree. However, that shouldn't be a problem for us, as we will try to remain as ethical as possible and make no changes to our child's facial features nor intellect.
Of course, but we can already see the differentiation in socioeconomic classes, as many people in our society cannot afford to have designer children, and so wealthy designer children sometimes deem themselves to be better than others. I've seen many minority groups, such as the one with disabilities, struggle to bond with those around them as a result of this. If anything, in my opinion, it would be best to make the process of designer babies accessible to all people and countries, disregarding socioeconomic status or income.
How insightful! But what I worry about most is making decisions on behalf of the children, and the children not being satisfied in the future, and that would raise an ethical concern.
That is a valid point. However, at the same time, we must not overlook the benefits of having a designer child. To begin, it would relieve us tremendously, as it would eliminate the burden of having to carry a child with genetic abnormalities like cystic fibrosis. Not only that, but it would also eliminate the financial burden if our child was to have the genetic condition.
Yes, definitely.
Well, based on this discussion, I personally do think that designer babies are providing hope for families like us who have a history of genetic disorders, while other families are using this technology for unethical reasons for their children, such as appearance. We must remember that our individual purpose is to prevent our child from having a life-threatening genetic disorder.
Absolutely. And we aren't looking to make them, say, better than everyone else.
With this, I think we should proceed with having a designer child.
So, as you saw, after talking to the doctors and having a deep discussion about it, my parents made the decision of having a designer baby. And personally, I agree with the fact that designer babies are a great idea, so long as we only use them to cure diseases. So, before wrapping up, I'd like to go over some current research going on with designer babies, as I know a lot of you are interested in this. This is happening by improving a genetic engineering process known as CRISPR-Cas9. Before going into detail, CRISPR-Cas9 is like a gene editing toolkit. It consists of a small piece of RNA and an enzyme protein called Cas9. The RNA component latches on to a specific DNA sequence. Then, Cas9 slices through the strands of DNA and precisely targets elements of DNA so active genes can be switched off and defective ones can be removed or replaced. And over the past few years, scientists have been injecting CRISPR-Cas9 after IVF, as you can see over here. However, most recently, a new technique was used where CRISPR-Cas9 is inserted at the exact same time as a sperm. This allows for all cells to be repaired, while previously some would remain mutated. This allowed Dr. Mitali Pav, a professor at the Oregon Health University, to use this technique to accurately alter the DNA of a human embryo to fix a heart failure condition. This new procedure of CRISPR-Cas9 is extremely helpful in producing healthy designer babies and preventing such heart diseases in the future. So guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed learning about my life, along with designer babies and all the processes associated with it, because it truly is super interesting. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and see you guys soon.